Thank you for pointing it out, chat. I had myself muted this entire time. That's annoying. All right, so you didn't miss much. But thanks for pointing it out before I got too deep into this. So we've been working on, Vulkan issues and Vulkan unit tests and trying to get that stuff done. We're getting close on. There's a couple more things done. I feel hopeful that we'll get everything wrapped up in the next week or so. Instead, we're going to work on the Ascent demo just to do something more fun and different. Hopefully, it'll be more fun and different. We'll see. Since I haven't touched the demo in a couple of weeks now, things have been changed. So I don't know if things will just build or have issues. And it looks like there's a build problem of some sort. So I'm going to have to figure out what this is. So more non-fun stuff. Maybe. We'll see. I'm pretty sure I was building this before DX. Nope, wasn't talking to somebody in the office or anything. I'm at the office, not at the house. Soon, I'm working on my new home office. By working, I mean literal construction. It's getting there. I just have a little bit more stuff to do. All right. Let's see. So I need to see where things were at before. Source, platforms, DX, spin, debug. Did it change? I guess it did. So that's why it's failing. I'm just gonna move this content over here because I don't want to deal with content today. I guess it changed versions of Mr. Code Wizard. I don't know about that, but okay, so it started up at least. Let's see if we can actually get into gameplay, because if we can, then I don't have to mess with anything else. I don't know what's going on there. Oh yeah, we were testing some new models one time before, just to see if some levels load up and what happens. Looks like our starting point is off and our scales may be off. We'll see. Lights seem to be working. Scale seems to be, or at least the start position seems to be off. I think this will let me get back through here. Yep. Okay. Things seem to be working. Generally. Okay. Enemies have to go away. Let's handle that first. I don't know exactly how the enemy stuff works, but we'll figure it out. I think like one of them kicks off all the other states. Let's just do this. That should kill all our enemies, right? This always happens on startup. Okay, so this should keep the AI from doing anything. I think I was working on a better mode for this at one point. I forgot where that left. There we go. How's the AI? The AI see me? I thought I had solved the spotted thing. Okay, so it looks like it's generally working. I'm not sure if it is working fully. Why the hell is that happening? Come on, thing. Okay, thing. Okay, do all pause when that happens. Those are all the lights from the enemy fire that was occurring that are floating around in space for some reason, slowly getting further away. Guess those things don't die for a very long time, huh? That's kind of a problem. That could probably be easily cut in half, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to go and add a... We have something in here. We do have a README. Let's add a second file here. Let's call it to-dos. Just to have something that to have a place to put stuff. The player well, I think it's considered lasers. Actually, let's do this. Kill projectiles once they leave the bounds at the level, which seems like a better solution, right? That'll ensure that things go away. Just adding that in my to-dos, I figure I'll have more to-dos as we go here. So I'm going to do this so that enemies stop bothering me. I'm going to continue to be in this level for right now. I'm going to switch to one of the other levels here in a little bit. I just want to kind of test something real quick, see if things are broken. I think at one point I was working on some lighting issues and I might have broken some stuff. I thought I hooked up a no collision case. Okay. Let's see. Hard to tell where that's at. It's right here. Really is hard to tell. No blink, color intensity. Let's go. I think I was working on getting the the intensity is way off. So I think that I moved it to like candle power kind of intensities. Yeah. And cast shadows. I want to make sure that that's working. Not that it matters for what we're doing today, probably. So what are we doing today is the best question, huh? There it is. Oh, cast shadows. We wanted 2 shadow. Okay, so the shadows are working. There's some, well, the light is kind of in a weird place. Some light leakage, but it's working. So that's good to know. Isn't totally broken. And I remember that I had like some helpers here. Yep, like cluster updates, so you can see our clusters. Because this, for those that aren't aware, this is like a forward plus renderer. So it clusters all the lights and then looks up the lights affecting a cluster, and then generates a light list per bucket here, or per cluster that you see on the screen, so that the shader doesn't have to do as much work.
So that's what you're seeing there. The levels of green are kind of like, goes from green to red for like how many lights are in this particular location. So you can kind of see the clusters forming as, you know, shots fired and stuff like that. There's some little math oddities in places that I need to work on here, but for the most part, it's working. Just need some more work on that stuff. Yeah, so bounds. So you can see the bounds of our objects. All right, so things are generally okay, I guess. Let's try none of the other levels. This one was the big test level. Yep. All right, and this is where I left it, where I was in the middle of testing some stuff, particularly some lighting issues. That's where I left things. Some little shinies on those things. Okay, let's add some lights in here to brighten things up. I think I might have been working on some scale stuff yet as well. I think that was part of the issues. I was working on switching the lighting over to like a candle power kind of thing. So some more realistic values. That's interesting. What is going on here? I'm not sure. Oh, did I might have broken some materials. That might be what's going on. But I really don't want to work on that stuff today. What I really wanted to work on is more just editor stuff today and not like render stuff. Things that'll make it a little easier to work with level editor and things that, I don't know, easier to work on than shader stuff. So let's see how we go. All right, so one of the things that's been bothering me is, so we have this and it moves, it does snap. You know, you can see that it's snapping at 25 units or something like that, but we have no control over the snap. Also, I really wanted to set up something to allow us to snap parts together and just make things easier to work with in general. So it's like if I had another mesh here, I hate the lighting's kind of screwed up, but whatever. And select another model, which you can't see the models. We don't have any kind of model viewer. It's kind of just a very simple list. So if I go whole 5, 5, there's that, makes that model. I can rotate the sucker around. I really hate the lighting's all screwed up. I really don't want to rebuild shaders because the content build process is slow at the moment. So we'll live with this. Actually, I think I can go and maybe change our ambient to brighten things up a little bit. Not that's going to be great. Oh, that's another thing to fix is this thing has been, too many people have been in this kitchen and how this edits is very rough. So I need to work on that a little bit. Anyway, so I think it's that. Yep. So, you know, it's kind of a little bit tricky to line things up. So what I would like to do is add the concept of snap points to these things so that when you move things around, it wants to snap to fixed points on things. Not that you have to. We can maybe set it up so that it works automatically in some cases and not in others. You think, well, you know, make the grid work, but you know, the grid is sort of fine. Maybe the grid is too fine. Maybe I don't need a grid that is that fine, at least for placement of these elements, the environment elements. Maybe what I want is, I really like the idea of adding snap point concept so that elements have snap points that can then be controlled by this. Some of it's tooling or some of it's pipeline stuff, because the right thing to do would be to embed in the model the concept of snap points so that the artist would basically build a node it's like, hey, this is a snap point. And whenever it would see a snap point node, it would then, if you move it near another snap point node, it would snap in place, is the idea. So you can kind of pre-select snap points. You can see how I was able to line this up and make it work, but to do it took some effort. I'm pretty happy with how our gizmo is looking, but there's definitely a problem not being able to tell where it is in the environment. The other thing here is this active layer concept, which is, I think, a cool concept, but, so basically there's several layers to each of these guys. It sucks that that's not resizable. And you can kind of turn layers on and off here in order to define it further. Let me go on the inside and see it. So there's like, there's door frame layer, which is the frame over there. Door frame B, sorry. You can see that's the door frame. There is these pipes that you can turn on and off. The base framework is separate from the pipes, just this framework. This structure for the hull, and then there's a center section. And I think there was, I guess this one doesn't have it, but some of them have like a metal plating that goes all the way throughout. So the idea being that you can drop in a part and slightly modify it in order to turn elements on and off, instead of having to like drag 50 parts into place, just to make it easier to build things quickly. Let me adjust this freaking light. It's not really helping very much. It's just making things look weirder. So yeah, the idea being that, that gives us some that gives us an ability to modify it a little bit. And the idea also being that, once we have snap points and we have all these layer toggles, you can technically write like something that automatically generates a level procedurally, because everything can snap together. It knows where everything's fit together. It knows that these are elements that can be turned on and off randomly to make it look different. And you can kind of get some variation in your level parts by doing that. So like in here, we have more layers. Let's see. These are hard because it's like there's several faces. So it's like it depends on which face you're looking at as to which ones you're messing with. I want to make that UI better, yeah, seeing those lights there in the reflection. Yeah, I wonder why my lights are all screwed up. It's something I was messing with in the shaders. It looks kind of cool, but not what it is intended at the moment. But whatever. There's this door cap, so you can close off door sections. The interior door frame. So you can kind of vary the look of things is the idea. So let's say, I guess, what would be the best use of our time today? Yeah, I don't want to work on lighting. Let's work on the environment stuff. So I don't want to mess with the models today. I don't want to have to open them up in Blender myself and try to mess around with them. But I can start adding the concepts that we need for this, and maybe even fake a couple of snapping nodes so that we can make this work. So yeah, if we add in the concept, then we can start coding to it, and then we can worry about fixing the art later. I can have the art team jump in and fix up some of these models to add what we need to make it work. So what will happen is the model will have certain nodes that are, it will run through the preprocessor and it marks some nodes as snap nodes for editor usage. It could be for other things too. Like you could technically we could probably have the concept of a snapping node and tell what kind of snapping node it is, right? Like one type of node could be things for connectivity of the environment, and one could be for accessories or props, right? So you could maybe have some parts where you can say, well, there's a prop that can go here and be able to define, special cases. So that might be where we end up eventually. But for now, I think we want to just do basic snapping. And then once we have that, then I want to fix this. So when you're moving an element around, it has snap nodes. It'll try to find, nodes that are close to it. And so the idea is, as you're moving it here, it would say like, oh, these two snap nodes are close to each other. They can snap together. Or I wonder if we want to do that, or if what we want to do is allow you to pick the thing from the snap node and drag it to another one and have it snap perfectly. That's probably what we want to do, right? Is make the snap nodes appear as additional handles. So probably not like on all the time, because that would make the scene really busy. It's busy enough. But it could be that once you select one, then it highlights the snap nodes and you can grab one and drag it so that it has like this secondary placement option. I think that could be pretty cool. We never implemented any other gizmos other than a drag gizmo, so there's no rotate gizmo of any kind. I find that less critical at the moment. There's some other things that we were doing as well. We set up some physics body stuff. So that and we have some things working, like duplicate works. You can't group duplicate because you can't group select. There's no group selection, but I can do that. And then I have these guys, and then I can bump them around and stuff, which is nice. And then when I go back to the editor mode, it snaps back to where it's supposed to be. Why is they? Oh, they're pushing apart because they're overlapping when they start. This is where group selection would work, right? Now, a good step might be to just jump in and get group selection to work. At least from the point that it selects multiple items. Then after that, having it modify the props to show a combined props, that's a pretty good task as well. Now with them separated, they're not going to move when you start, and then you can knock them around and stuff. I was working on making the shooting affect them. Did I finish that? No. I was working on making shooting affect them, but that's kind of tricky because you don't want to impart all the force, and you don't want it to push itself through something. But it's definitely a cool effect to have that stuff. Once we had sound effects and everything else, it's going to be pretty neat to have all that stuff. All right. So yeah, let's change gears a little bit and let's work on group selection, because that could be fun. So I'm going to save the level. I'm going to close out. I think that should still work, even though we're not working on I need to double check if that's working. No, level save is not working because it works on the content build process. I mean, it saved it. It just saved it to the source assets and not it didn't copy it across because the content build step is not working. That's fine. It's not going to interrupt what we're doing. I just don't want to get into the content build step because we have some issues there with giant assets being rebuilt multiple times. All right. So we can go to our editor, which is all in here. It can be built how it's written. It can be built out. We have our undo stack. We have our undo action. And if I go to pickables, or what we use for things that can be picked in the scene, they're all based on entities. There's a gizmo, and I think on the main editor is the thing that has the selection. Yeah, where is? Okay, so it basically just has the concept of picked as, oh, it's picked, so that must be the item we're talking about. So what we really need is we need a selection that can have multiple things, right? So we're going to add in a class for this. We're just going to add it here. I'm just going to call it selection. That seems good enough. This thing, we'll just add it in. How do we have these things set up? Oh yeah, we do it that way. Crib that from over here. We'll need these things. We'll see. Don't need that. And we probably want it to be a class, right? Do we have anything special on our classes? Yeah, just public class. And we probably want it to be a list of entities. I'm going to call it picked. Hello, Ars Turtle. Let's see, something from chat here. Let's talk about it for a moment. So Square Banana says, in addition to snap points, you could also have cutout areas, you know, that where tunnels define a cut shape, and the cube node cuts that area, and the pixel shader gives a lot of placement flexibility. So I see what you're saying. Define cut shape. Cube node cuts that area in the pixel shader. So basically you would use another shape to basically, I guess, cull any pixels that lie within that shape. Yeah, I mean, there's some tricks you can do there with that. One problem with some of that is, I mean, you might be able to use it for little things, but if you use it too much, it can become a problem. Like culling pixels, culling at the pixel shader level is like the most expensive culling that you can do, because it's after it did all the CPU work to draw the object, did all the GPU work to transform the vertices and everything else. It does all the setup to set up the pixel, say, okay, I'm going to go to the pixel shader and I'm going to render this pixel. And it does all that work. It prepares the pipeline, it gets all ready, and then it goes in the pixel shader and says, okay, don't draw this pixel. So it's kind of like the latest point that you could ever cut something out. So you can do that for, I think that's something that could be used for like fine details, but using it for like high level building could be problematic, because now you have, let's say you use that and like every tunnel has 2 or 3 of these things in there for doing something. So how many pixels are you actually cutting? You know, if you start cutting lots and lots of pixels with it, it's constantly removing pixels that should be there. There's also the issue of depth. A lot of things pre-run the depth shader and then do that. Well, the depth shader then has to cut those pixels, which that's a very expensive process, is to cut the pixel in the depth shader or in the depth buffer. And while it can work, it's a lot of, you know, it's also the GPU isn't the greatest at it. Like, maybe this is me, my old school thinking, but back in the day, the GPU, whenever you would do stuff like that and, you know, cut a pixel, it's like the slow path, because the GPU is like thinking, okay, 99, almost all pixels are rendered. And then you get to one that says conditionally cut this one out. So it's the slow path. The GPU is not predicting that that's going to happen on a regular basis. So that slows things down. So it's an interesting idea, but I think that maybe it's too difficult to, or not too difficult. It's just not a tool that you can use everywhere. You can use it in certain cases, maybe, but you'd have to use it very, you know, infrequently and for very specific reasons, I think. So yeah, that's mostly what I think is going to be the problem with that. How do you do this? I was thinking about this in C#. I forgot how the C# array operator works. Let's see. I've been using Claude lately to kind of get and see if it understands what I'm meaning. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want my selection class to have something like that to make it a little bit nicer to work with, right? Let's make this private then. And I'm going pre-allocate it. I'm going to make it read-only because we don't ever need to change it. Nope. So yeah, that's basically what I think we want to do for that. We also want to, oh, see, this is the thing. It's like, this is getting into AI behavior. Like, that's AI. That is not, you know, IntelliSense and stuff like that. I mean, I get it. I like to name my things with underscores for members. That's just me, my old school wording concepts. So I'm going to start with this and make this work, and then we're going to work to the next step. So we have the selection type. I'm going to replace this with selection. And I think, yeah, I'm going to keep this. Man, this thing's also mixed with, you know, underscores and not underscores, just different people working on different times. Let's make sure that the selection is always there. I'm going to also make that read only because we don't want to, we want to do all the operations in the selection. We don't want it to actually be for now. I'm just going to have it do this. We'll fix it properly later. Let's do this. That'll be nicer, right? Placing a tunnel. So Square Bananas brings up underscores probably. Yeah. Arsenal says underscores for private is old school. I'm old as no children. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know for a long time, like when I started doing C and C++ back in the day, you know, warding was everybody was wart happy. Warts are what people call the stuff at the beginning of this. And there was a time where people were, and Microsoft, I think, kind of started it. Like they would do _m for member. If it was like a pointer to a C string, it would be like pointer C wide, you know, name or something like that, and it'd be like, well, that's a pointer to a wide character, you know. So they would put all this stuff in here to kind of tell what the type was, and some people would do like UI and, you know, for unsigned int, or, you know, L for longs and things like that. There was a lot of wording of things, and people, you could see some types and it would just have all this wording in front of you. You try to figure out what it meant. Let's see if there's I was going to check and see if there's anybody that's ever talked about that on Microsoft Code. Nah, anyways. But yeah, they used to wart their stuff very heavily, and that got kind of pushed back as like, hey, that's ridiculous. You don't need to do all that. So there was everybody's against like warting for a while. And I still see people that do M underscore for members and stuff like that. But I just use underscore, say like, hey, it's internal. And that to me seems minimal. It works. It's very readable. It's simple. And when you look at code, you know, like when I look at code, like over here, it's like, well, what things is this a member? I can't tell. You know, you have to figure it out. And just having it something like that tells you that it's a member immediately. It's very simple. Doesn't require very much. You know, it'd be nicer if the editor told you some of that stuff, but there's only so much you can do through colors. Like I've seen some people's editors where it's a million colors, it's a freaking rainbow, and it's like just too much. So I get it, like why you need to kind of use a mixed amount of stuff, because you can't just use colors for everything, and in fonts. And I've seen some people like change the fonts on certain elements and things like that. It's, you know, more power to them, I guess, but it's kind of crazy. Sword Bananas follows up on his first idea. I put an example video in the Code Time Discord thread placing a tunnel through terrain. Yeah, I mean, that is a very specific case, you know, and there are good reasons for stuff like that.
if you have a terrain engine and you have to cut things through it, that becomes like a big deal, and that's not a bad way to kind of do it. You might want to do it at a higher level, even, passing those things. Like, I would possibly like associate thing, like for something like that, I would either, depending on your terrain engine, you could maybe kill the triangles within that stuff. So you're clipping out triangle data, which would happen at a higher level shader so that you can avoid all the pixel work. You could do it at the pixel level. If you don't have tons of these, and at least not lots of them that are in view all the time, you kind of disable them when they're out of view or they're far away, or it doesn't matter. I mean, it's kind of like a tool that you have to use, sparingly, only where it really helps you. But yeah, I mean, engines definitely use those kinds of concepts. So let's get back to this. We're gonna add an empty member to this thing. Need to get used to the newfangled way to do this stuff. I'm still very old school. God damn, it's helping me too much. I don't like it. It's like I don't want it to help me on everything. Let's fix these guys over here. Go back to that in a minute. I probably need to add the transform into the selection as well, so that the selection handles multiple transforms and multiple objects. That's going to be a whole thing. Not empty. This probably needs to have like a modifier. Oh, I see. We'll leave this for right now, and then we'll do so let's add a clear selection. All it's doing is damn you. Need to add an add. So a lot of pass through here, but that's kind of just happens, but this class will get bigger as we go. I mean, I do find this kind of stuff fun to work on. Because it's kind of internal kind of code, but it's something that needs to happen, and it kind of makes everything else easier to work with by having this stuff nice. So this is going to have to take a
I mean, there's a serialize for this, but I think there's a serialize for multiple empty entities too, isn't there? No, I'm gonna have to make a serialize for multiples. That's how we do copies and clones is, and this is just me working on editors back in the day. I've gotten the concept figured out, but what you do is it's probably not the fastest way to do it, but it works good enough for most cases. I'll just deal with this right now. I want to get this to work first, and then we can go in and make things better later. But the idea is that, you use your save code that you normally would have, and use your save code to do your serialization for copies and clones and duplications and things like that. You can also use it to some extent for undo redo, but that's not really fast, so you kind of want to avoid that. I've seen people use serialization for undo redo, either serializing it to a string and compressing it and trying to store it in memory, and then restoring it by deserializing it, but that becomes really slow. What I always do with undo and redo, and you'll see it here, like create action. I guess create action. So here's a case. Create action creates, the undo actions are what do the work to the scene to change it. Then it has a do and an undo function. So it creates an action here, stores the state, like here's the scene I'm working on, here's the entities that I'm creating or destroying. I have this multi-create for some reason. I forgot where I'm using it. Command paste. Oh, right, because it's deserializing on paste. It's pasting from text, which is actually a neat feature. I kind of cribbed that from Unreal Engine, which is a really cool idea. Is you can copy everything, and it basically the copy puts it into the pasteboard, right? So I serialize it, put it into the pasteboard, which means that once you do that, you could paste it into Notepad. So it would like paste out your scene serialization format into Notepad. You could hold on to that thing, so you can just save it on your disk as a text file, and then later, if you want it back, you just copy that thing, come in here and call paste, get your text at the paste text the clipboard, deserializes it, and then adds it to your scene again. So a really cool way to kind of store things. I mean, it's a neat way. I don't know if it's cool, but anyway, so the undo redo, the do comes in here and says, hey, add all these entities that I defined into the scene. The undo just removes them from the scene. It doesn't just delete them, it just removes them from the scene. That means that you can do it again, whenever you want, and it doesn't have to, it's not destroying entities and recreating them. So it's very fast to do actions when you do stuff like that instead of destroying everything. There's a side effect. If you miss an undo action or something doesn't get captured, you could return something in the wrong state. But that's kind of the job of the person working on the editor, to make sure that that doesn't happen, just by making sure your code is written properly. Let's get this thing back to working, and then we'll worry about the next phase. Cthulhu lover, I guess. It's the children of those who are out of touch. Every single time I see a private field without underscore prefix for the usage of this keyboard. Yeah. I definitely hate that people put this dot in front of everything. That's very annoying. There's no reason to do it. It's like, yeah, I get that's another way to do it, but it's a more complicated way to do it. It's much clearer to just define members. A lot of times you have a lot of members, if you think about it, most functions have very few arguments you're passing in, but your type might have lots of members. So to me, it's easier to, to think, and that's kind of an argument for the opposite, right? That you reward all the fields coming into the thing and not the other, but that then makes your code harder to read, I think. So doing it with that, it's kind of like event sourcing. I was referring to undo handling. Yeah, I guess that's true. So let's get back to this. I'm pulled in too many directions. Got to keep going on this. Pick 0. Let's copy this guy. So I want to fix this, make sure it all compiles, and make sure that at least the basics work, but they should. But doing this in steps isn't a bad idea. I can then come back and Aha. Entity. Oh, that's interesting. That's for the toolbox. It assumes that you're gonna, okay, so I see what's going on here. I need to pass an, let's see, if I remember correctly, actions, that's the return thing, and you can specify, I think that works. Somebody kind of broke that in a weird place. Always forget. I thought actions, these are arguments coming in, are they? It's the functions that have, yeah, that's an argument coming in. So I'm going to say false here. Then we'll deal with, because this is the thing that deals with the click. I think what I want to do is, I guess in this case, it's always going to create it. This case, it always creates it that way without, whenever you create something new, it's always going to say, no, it's a new selection. We're not adding to the selection. So this makes sense. The other way to do this, which is probably the better way to do this, maybe. Let me do this for the specific case, because it doesn't need to know about this multi-selection for this path. It should have just been so it's just going to create a little anonymous. Why isn't that working? It's weird. It's going to create a little anonymous delegate here to do the call and say, hey, don't add. That's cleaner for this case. It doesn't need to know anything else. It just needs to know, like, hey, here's a function for picking this thing. Okay, so everything builds. So in theory, this should all work now. I think I already handled clearing and all this. Let's make sure things work here. Then we'll go from there. Yeah, that's the thing. I always forget which one is which. Action returns nothing, function returns type. Yeah. Func is the more complicated or the more flexible one, I guess. Aha, problem. I mean, it probably should handle this better. I mean, it'd be easy for it to handle it better, right? Start it again, which is annoying, but that's a little bit more flexible. And sometimes having things being a little bit more flexible for the editor isn't a bad idea. All right. Interesting. Why? I must have done something wrong here. I do not understand. Did I do something wrong there? Must be that getter. Yeah, that's what I thought. It had to be that. Like, that didn't make any sense otherwise. That's why. Duh. Duh. Very simple. Okay, back to working. Awesome. Yeah, I forgot about that. This rock model is kind of big, but let's see that it works. And I can change this guy to barrel. So yeah, it's working. God, I hate this thing is so dark. No, I didn't want to do that. We have one somewhere. Anyways, okay, so that's working. So that works. So next step is let's deal with some more fancy stuff here. We want to have multiple selection. So let's make that work. So who calls on pick here? Delete clears the selection. Location, command cut, command paste. It's on left click. Pickables contains position. The reason I did it this way is I wanted to make sure that if, so what I want to do is I want to do, I don't want to have to like clear the selection multiple times or do select like, oh, pick nothing, then do the other selection. It's like, no, I'd rather just do it only if I need to say nothing was picked. So it doesn't have to go through this multiple times. That's just me just thinking, maybe I'm optimizing too early. Well, how was I doing this? I was there it was. I was using the input state. Where does that come from? Process input handles it. Is this where the pick gets called? I think it does. Yeah. Okay, so that's what we want to do. So that gets called internally from here. So what we want to pass in here is maybe it should be smart enough to know. I think I have a helper for modifiers. There's this whole player zero thing, but it's coming from the input manager part of the system. So that's why it's done that way. So yeah, let's do I don't know if I forget if keep pressed is just means down or it means that it's press this. Yeah, okay, it's the one time. So we want key down. Left shift, right shift. I'm going to do that. So that should support, actually I don't need to do that. I'm going to let this. Shift press is going to add. So that should multi-select at that point. And then I think I should be able to, will this actually show us something interesting? Maybe. Let's see what happens. Actually, I probably should fix something in particular. Let's do this. John Smith, hello. So let's change this to support a list of entities. I'm going to start promoting everything to freaking underscores because this is driving me nuts. Slowly but surely, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to pre-cache it with like, I think that will reserve memory, right? Yeah, capacity. I'm just going to make it like something just so that it is a little bit, yeah, it uses a little bit more memory, but who cares? And some pre-capacity isn't a bad idea so that it can support, multiple select fairly easily. C16, that seems like a nice number. Just to avoid it generating garbage if you're selecting two things, which is going to be a most common case. So we're going to do for each. There might be something I want to do here, like it could be that I want to add these and remove these in a very specific order. I'm not sure though. We'll see. Make a second constructor that takes a list of entities, or it should probably take a, let's have it take a selection. Maybe I should make my selection an iterator, huh? Yeah. It's like add range. So with that, as long as I make my selection in enumerable, then that'll come through. Which, if I remember correctly, how do I do that? Let this solve that problem. I think that's what I need to do there. And yeah, I think that's all I need to do. That'll make that work, I believe. Yep. So that gives me a test case. Let's see. See what happens. And selection is still functional. Duplicate works. Duplicate. Duplicate. So that's working. Now can I multi-select? I don't think it's going to have any sort of feedback. It actually did it. You see that changed? So yeah, so it is selecting things because it's updating the property list. So if I hit delete, hey, everything deleted. If I hit undo, everything's back. Okay, so we have some basic multi-selection. Sanjis 457, system out print, line hi. All right, basic multi-selection. What we don't have is some visual indicator that that's happening. I need to make this do the same thing, like it removes the selection indicator whenever it is picked. Let's go do that real quick so we can tell that things are picked a little bit better. And then I'm probably going to move the transform gizmo to, I guess, this is where it gets a little tricky. Because of our snapping, there's different ways to handle the transform gizmo when you have multi-select. But I guess if we want to obey our snapping, the question is, does snapping, do individual elements move to the snap locations, or does the snapping only get obeyed for the selection and individual elements get placed in between snap points? That's a question. It'll do some weird stuff if we one way or another, so we'll see. So this needs to be fixed to support multiple serialization or duplicate and stuff like that to work. You want that to work. Let's make that work. That's not a bad thing to fix. This doesn't necessarily, this probably needs to always return a list of entities because it doesn't know if it's creating one or multiple potentially, I assume. So what's the right way to do this? It's basically just repetition, I guess. Right? It's adding an element for the type of entity it is. It's creating an element, and I think that I just need to add elements to elements. So I think what we want here is okay, I'm doing that wrong. Give it a name. Wait, does it return null if it can't? Yeah, it can. think that's what I need to do. Serialize a scene. And this needs to work regardless if it's a scene or not. Or I can, let's call this, and the only place we use it is from the editor. Let's call it selection. Just name it something special that we can identify here, maybe. Maybe we name it special. Nah, too long. Let's do it. Call it that. And then that's not going to actually create an entity. I probably should check for it first. If element name local name equals selection. Then I do this special case. Otherwise, I go into the other path. So let's just make the special case do that. This will be the fall through. And this has to return now multiple entities. Right. Yeah, we have to have two functions, I think. That's going to be better anyways. And it could fall back. It might still need to handle both cases, but serialize, let's call it that. And it's going to return a list of entities. And it falls back here, just regular deserialize. Let's have it always create the list. Oh, sorry, I got rid of my chat. Square Banana says, by the way, the latest version income forms added multi-selection list boxes might be useful for your editor entity lists. Yeah, maybe. That's interesting. That might be helpful. Steepikia, don't know what the name is. Hello, I'm new here. I have one question, which is a little bit related to what you're doing right now. If I don't know if this is the right time to ask it. Sure, ask away. So I think here, that's always going to return that. And then here, I need to go through the children of this element, I think. What do they call them? Guess that's how we do that. I'm taking guesses here. Man, I really hate AI. I hate that they're forcing me down this path, but whatever. Okay, so the editor here is going to deserialize selection. It's going to return a list, and on pick has to do something a little bit more special. Nope, don't want to do that. And this might be a lot, maybe, because it's triggering this. Maybe I need to have a multi-pick concept to begin with so that it's a little smarter about what it does, because it's kind of like it's potentially clearing multiple times and all that stuff. Because it really just needs to do this one time, call this multiple times. This is a whole other special case eventually. And this is a one-time thing once you selected all of it. So maybe I do need to have like a multi-pick kind of concept. Yep, let's do this. Make that one, God damn it. Always doing the wrong thing there. I'll just have it clear, then I'm going to have it making these use the enumerable just to make the code flexible for other purposes. I'm going to have it select. Can I do that? I don't think I can do that. Can I? No. I think that'll work. It calls this enumerable multiple times, which, assuming your enumerables work that way, it should be fine. Yeah, this is fine. It doesn't need to do that. Oh, no. Let's make that one very specifically only be called in certain cases. Damn it, lost my code. Okay, when you lost, there it is. Okay, I think this is going to work. Let's find out. Next time I'll make sure that the content builder is fixed. All right, so to fix this to start at a higher resolution for my purposes. I'm going to create a physics body, going to make it the create again. There it is. I'm going to duplicate. Oh. Okay, so that's the serializing a selection. So it's going to create. Oh, interesting. It's already. It's going to have just one element though. Yeah, because it always works as a selection now. Returns a list of one. Clones that. Does that. Pick selections and to do a multi-select for that. Okay, so that seemed to work. Yep. So now if I select two of these, I'm going to select this one, then you're going to see the one of these change. I guess this one changed when I select the other one. Yep, just multi-selected, and I hit duplicate, Control D. I'm going to move the selection. Only selected one, but is there two here? Yep. Because it only did the duplicate didn't select the correct thing, right? So, but it worked generally. Well, it should have worked. Let's see what's happening there. I'm gonna do it again. Select both of those. I'm gonna hit Control D. Hit multiple selections. It's gonna make one. You can see here what the serialization is. Selection, physics entity, physics entity. So those are the two physics entities. It did it. We use XML for our serialization format. Then it's going to deserialize, which says, hey, we're going to add both of these in here. So it added both entities in. So we have there are two entities and they're two different locations. Yep. So returns that list. Undo stack creates a action and does it. So adds the first entity, adds a second entity to the scene. So that's done. Then it goes pick selection. So pick clear, selection 2, pick add, pick add. Just picks the first one. Oh, it's because it only sets the transform to the one, and that means it's only moving that one transform. Because I believe, how does that work? You go look, but yeah, the next thing I need to do is fix the transform. Stipica, I guess. Also is really fascinating how you do all that really quickly. For me, it's like sci-fi. I would love to understand a lot what day. Yeah, I mean, you just have to do it. You know, if you're interested in this stuff, do it. You know, it's the easiest to get into it that it ever was. When I was a kid and I first started getting into programming, you know, a lot of it costs money. You know, you had to, you know, you just didn't have a computer in the house. You had to buy a computer. You know, almost everybody now has a computer or even a phone, right? You can even program on your phone. There are apps out there that you can program code on your phone. There are websites where you can program from the website. So everything, you had to first start with a computer. Then if you had a computer, you had to buy, you know, software for it. And sometimes some programming tools were things you had to buy for it. There's always BASIC built in. So it was, you know, now it's just so easy to get into it because everything's available to everyone on the planet from anywhere. You know, I could be writing code on my phone somewhere. So just get into it. You know, I know there's some websites that let you write code directly and do interesting stuff. Like even Shader Toy is fun to use to experiment with shaders. So you just have to decide what you want to do and just start doing it. That's the best way to learn, the best way to make progress on things. So it's doing multiples. The selection is working, it is cloning multiple things. But what it isn't doing is when I'm moving two items, it's not moving two items. I have multiple selections. This is moving one. So let's fix that. You know, we'll not worry about the gizmo. We'll just make sure that the movement is always translated to two items. So let's do that next. So where is that coming from? What is this for? I forgot what that was for. Well, this is a helper for like showing a random pop-up for something. Forget what exactly we use it for, but so I think how it works is the gizmo, when it gets moved, and our gizmo is kind of rough, but when it gets moved, it pushes state to it tells the selection to move, I think. How does it work? Okay, here it goes. This is what sets the transform, but it's basically just setting the transform. You know, so it needs to be gizmo mode none. Otherwise, I'm not sure how this works exactly. It's been a while since I looked at it. Let's keep it like this, where the first item is the one that keeps the widget or the selection. It means that you can't do a selection and rotate from the center, but let's leave it like that for right now. So to do this, I'm not sure what case that is versus this one. I need to see what that is. I mean, the transform action is, so obviously this is a nothing, right? Like, what are our modes? Translate, done. Because there's no rotation mode. So it's like, okay, so here's translate mode. And it's not doing an action because this is like the interactive mode. When you're moving stuff around, this is the interactive change. This case is when you release. When you're done, then it says, okay, perform an action. So what it does is it restores the transform. So that's what's happening. Character dragging in a scene. So yeah, so there's one case where you're dragging the scene interactively and you don't want that to all undo. So it takes another path there. Sorry, I made this big again. And then there's the case where you actually let go and it's like, okay, now I want to apply the transform. So a couple things need to happen. One, transform action needs to support multiple entities. And we're going to bake that into the system. You get that right one day. It is enumerable, isn't it? I always forget. Yeah, okay. I always get confused with that. And enumerable and enumerator, I always screw those up in my head. Yeah, I'm going to make this all work with relative transforms to each other, which will be a little bit of work, but it's not the end of the world. I'm going to make this the same as the other. Sounds like a good number. Range is going to add all these entities into the list. Or So it needs to do the transform to work, it has to have a relative, some sort of relative transform. It needs to keep the original. So the original has to be a list because it has to be the original transforms exactly for each entity. So I need to have, each entity has to have its own, so that it always restores it perfectly. Because if not, then you might not restore it perfectly because you don't want to undo the transform. Math is, floating point is little fiddly bits, and you don't want to just undo the math because you might not get the same result. So keeping it, keeping it originally like that is better. The transform, this is okay for it to operate multiple times to do the action, but to undo it, you really want to make sure that you're restoring it exactly. Yeah, let's use the selection. Gross. Stores all the original transforms for the entity, then stores the start date, the final transforms. This is the final location. How we decide everything else is up to us. One thing we could do is we could move the brains of this. Well, what time is it? We got about another 30 minutes or so. Because the idea of like you're moving together, well, who holds on to the information of how that works? And having the selection kind of know how to do this isn't a bad idea because then it can apply it multiple ways. I mean, because we want consistency in the behavior, but let's just write it one time and then we'll see how we reuse it later. We'd spend time here analyzing things, or we could actually, make it work. So undo returns to the originals. So I'm just going to do this. They should all match up. So I'm going to actually make this instead of 4 each, I'm going to make it a 4. Transform equals restores the original transform on each of them. And then do has to apply the transform. So here's where we get into the question of like, well, how does it work? Well, it needs to all be relative to a point, right? So it's like I need to have the differences between, how do I do that best? It's like it all needs to be relative. If I know I need to get the relative position between the transform and itself, and then I need to get the difference between itself and the current transform. It's like I need to get the difference between the original of each, right? Well, I guess I need to know the anchor point. Like, what is the anchor point? Like, what is the original anchor so that I know what it's relative to? And then everything I have to store the offsets relative to the original, right? Because if we have like, I wish I had a nice little drawing program of some sort that I could use here. It'd be nice. I'll get better at that. Paint on that, that's great. So I want to have like, it's all when I exit. Annoying. Is it me, or is it always when I use paint and I can never find my tools? There they are. We want to be able to, we have two objects. Let's say the gizmo at the point, if the gizmo's at the same location, then it's pretty, like if it starts here, that's the origin, and then I want to move this thing over to here. So this one, that transforms the same, but it's still moving this distance. This one, I want to move it relative to that, right? So I need to know the relative location from the original to what the new position is. I need to know that that offset. So I guess this could pass in. This is the final location, so it needs to basically pass in, because it needs, instead of passing in the transform, it needs to pass in a relative transform, I guess is what it needs to do, right? So that let's see, John Smith says the origin could also be intended as a sort of rotation anchor point. Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. But I think that we don't really need an origin here. I think what we need is the transform should always be a relative transform. But no, if the transform action eventually is more than just translation, well, that's a whole other problem. This is really a translation action, I guess, not really because rotation requires something completely different. I need to know the center point where I'm rotating relative to. That's a whole other operation. This is really for translation more than anything else, I think, even though it passes a full transform around. It's really just translation, because I don't have a rotation gizmo now, but if you're going to do rotation, you want to you can't just have one rotation transform to apply to all of them, because it's going to be, that would mean each one rotates independently, and we don't want to do that necessarily. Sometimes we want to rotate them around an anchor point, like you're saying. So I think we might end up having a different action for that. So this is really more of a translation action and not really a transform action, which means that I really just need the vector of what is like the offset from the current position to the current position. Where did I move this translation from to, and then I need to apply that to everything consistently, and then it should work, I think. And I think that's true. And then rotation has to be handled differently. So again, there's only one mode right now, translation. If we have rotation and scaling in here, that those are going to have to be handled differently. So let's change that. Yeah, I mean, that has to happen as well, but I'm going to do that, a step at a time. Yeah, I need to be able to store more data here. The start transform is set from where? Yeah, when I call set transform, it sets kind of like the root. This gets called for interactive dragging. So what has to happen here is it needs to get one relative to the other. All of it's kind of built around the concept of everything is a transform, but it's more complicated than that for things like rotation. There's not one origin point, so it can't be just that. So yeah. Okay, let's see this. I always forget which way it needs to be. I guess it needs to be this way. I don't know what that. How do I change the position? I forget how that works. What do I have? Did I call it position? Did I call it? Yeah, position. Yep. So position equals empty. Oh, this is where I need to know what the original was. I don't have that on a per, like I need to store that. You know what the original position was versus that to get it to the right location again. And it can't be that. So this whole concept of like, oh, there's a start transform versus that. I mean, it's like I need to store that stuff for the movement. And the question is who owns that, could the selection help with that? Possibly. It wouldn't hurt for the selection to help with that, because it is something that's kind of critical. If it held on to the transform so that I can always get that back, it wouldn't be a bad thing. So I don't mind doing something like this. Come on, thing. So it holds on to the original transforms when they're selected. And in theory, it could be updated on reselection. Or is it something that the gizmo should own? And the gizmo be responsible for? The gizmo has no concept of multiple objects. But maybe it should. Maybe the gizmo should more closely work with the selection instead of it being the other way around. The gizmo just moves itself and somebody else handles the selection. I think I'm going to make the selection smart. I think that might be better. Can you not do that? Yes, you can't do that. Have that. So if I do that, it feels a little gross, but we'll see. We'll see where we end up. Okay. Okay, I can't do the for each. I have to do a for loop. Let's see. let's see. You could want to store an origin, then you can later change the origin with an enum for like on first, on center. Yep, agreed. Right now I'm just doing it on first to start with, and then adding on center as a new concept would be good. The origin could also be intended as a sort of rotation or anchor point. Yep, that's the idea, is that the origin would be the anchor point or rotation point of things. As soon as you multi-select a new center of mass, point should be stored. Correct. That's usually the default behavior. I didn't want to have both sets of behaviors, but we'll see. I'm just going to get something that works and then kind of adapt. So, so let's see, what's the best way to do this? This is a little annoying, but let's just do the gross thing and we'll work from there. I don't love it, but I'm going to do it. Wait, is there a better way to do that? Yeah, fuck it. Who cares? Nope. Actually, what if I did? Hey, can I do that? I think I can do this, but I think that it means that people can manipulate it from the outside. But if you're doing that, then you're kind of getting yourself into trouble. You shouldn't be manipulating from the outside. Let's just do that. That'll work. I think I can make this maybe a read-only list or something, but there's some grossness around that. I wish I could just say, hey, this is constant. Don't change it. But whatever. Oh. Always use undo redo to get back to my stuff. Pick.transforms. What I want to do is actually do position. So that will offset everything the way I expect it to for a translation. Not that this is great, but it's a starting point. We'll worry about when we get to rotation, how we deal with rotation cases. Storing the full transform is good because it has everything for rotation and for storing state. Transform action now takes that. But it also needs an offset. This was restoring the position before it did it, but it doesn't really need to do that, I guess, huh? So it was never relative. I don't think it actually needs to do that. Yeah, let's do this. Oh, I see why it was doing that. Restored it because it's like, hey, you're gonna offset it again by some amount. Well, or maybe that's what was the intent was originally, was to do that. I guess it does store the original transform, so that's why I was putting it back, because it stores the original so I can restore the original. So that was why I was moving everything back to its original state. So let's do that here. by using the transform that we have in the original, because that we know is good. So it restores the original state. And this can do its thing. I think this is going to work.
Let's see. Mutable array is good for that. Yeah, but I think like the thing that I saw in those things is like it seems like that creates garbage because it has to you have to allocate one or pre-allocate one. It becomes inconvenient. All right, so I'm gonna add a physics body. Gonna change its stripe. Great. Going to duplicate it. That should all work. Move my transform. Hey, look, it moved the transform and it didn't break anything. Ooh, that broke. So that was okay. Yeah, things are getting out of sorts. So if I move this guy and move him back, aha. So move him. Is he not in the right position? Okay, that looks correct. What went wrong? Let's create one again. Let's see where it goes wrong and figure out why. Okay, here he is. Oh, whatever. Here he is. I'm going to move you. That seemed to be okay. That seemed to be okay. What went wrong? Oh, a double move without a deselection is the problem, looks like. Oh, I know why. I know why. I know why. So I move him here. That's fine. If I click off of it, it's fine. It's in the right place. Same thing here. Fine. Click off of it, it's fine. If I do a move and then I do another move, it's broken. It's because it does not, after it moves it, it does not reset the selection. It's because of this. Where is it? Interactive dragging. So it does this and does the action, but it never updates the selection. It needs to kind of update the transforms in this thing for the new offset. Let's do the gross thing. Let's do the gross thing to make it work for now. Hang on. Let's do it here. Let's do it live. And then we'll worry about cleaning it up later. Okay, that updates the transform, so that'll work now. It won't break that case. That said, I think when I undo redo, it doesn't obey, it doesn't update the selection, I don't think, on undo redo. That makes sense to do, I think. What I want that to do, kind of wacky maybe. We'll see. I want it to basically go through all the picked items. I basically want it to do what it's doing for this thing. Where is it? I want it to do this.
Yeah. Interesting. Pick count is also pick count. So I just want to refresh the transforms whenever it does that. So that works there. It also works on undo to ensure that the selection is correct again. Fixing any selections. Apply code changes. Okay, so that should work. That should work. Okay, that looks solid. So now if I duplicate, I have two of them. Just kind of testing some different cases. All right, so that looks like it's working there. Let's get this thing in a little bit better state to look at shit. Anyways, so that seems to work. So next step. Multi-select drag. It's working. Cool. Then I'm going to duplicate. That's a multi-select duplicate. So I duplicated, and multi-select duplicate works for that. I can add those two guys in and move them all together. Undo, 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 undo. Cool. So you can see now how that creates, the ability to do a lot more editing. Now, there's no click drag selection. That'd be really nice, huh? And I need to make this apparent that multi-select is occurring here, but it is. I can now start to get crazy here. Sorry, having trouble manipulating stuff. Mara was saying earlier about the cut and paste stuff working through the clipboard, which is a neat little trick here. But since I did that, I can then come into like Notepad or Edit++, hide, go away. Which I need to change this to dark selection mode. Oh, wrong thing. So if I come in here and select a bunch of things, which is interesting because you can do interesting stuff with this once you can do this. I'm going to copy. Oh wait, there's only, I guess copy and paste isn't working for multiple things. Yeah, haven't fixed that yet. So if I copy two, then paste, I think it only made one. Yeah, it only made one copy. Some things, more stuff needs to be hooked up to the multiple selection concept, but it isn't generally working. So yay, it works. Some pretty good physics stuff there. I have an FPS counter. Yeah, there it is. This is running in debug. And my machine's pretty freaking old now. I think my machine's like, I don't know, 4 years old or something like that. It's a pretty good frame rate for a debug build. We're using Bepu for physics, and it's pretty fast. So yeah, looking pretty good. Let's fix the, what time is it? It's 11. Let's spend a couple more minutes. Let's fix the drawing for pick selections. Guess delete is working, duplicate is working, cut isn't. So now command cut is working. Copy is working because now it's just serializing this. You see, once you get things in place, things start to work. I make it serialized selection. Wait, what? I guess this already works with select multiple because it's like it doesn't know what's in that stream. It could be anything. So this already works. So command paste works now. So all those work. I don't know what this was for. I don't know what this was for. Okay, let's go draw 2D. Pickables clear, show icons. What I want to do, don't draw the pick icon. Do that. I guess it's calling the enumerable to do that. I guess that doesn't hurt, but I don't love that idea. Oh, God damn it. Stop. That probably just added a bunch of stuff to my into my usings into the top. I guess this is a case where I could do this, right? Just because the list contains is faster than the enumerable. That's the only reason I'm not doing it that way. The enumerable works, but it's doing a slow enumerator process, which has to mean with some of these, it has to create, like, because this is how the enumerators implemented here. Like, this is actually returning an entity, and this is returning like a class instance because of this. There's a way to make this faster, but I don't want to deal with it at the moment. And it's not critical. I'm always worried about performance and things like that. But anyway, so this is going to work. So now pickables will at least get rid of their handle whenever they're selected. So it'll be more apparent that the selection is happening. And then cut copy should all work. There's probably some more cases that don't, but this is pretty good. I got rid of my chat. Right, so if we come back in here, physics body is my favorite thing to mess around with here. So let's move this guy in. So I'm going to duplicate him and duplicate him again. Then multi-select. So now they disappear, which is a pretty good indicator that it was multi-selected. You know, I like that versus, I like removing things from it instead of adding things to it as the way to know that multi-selection occurred. But, you know, there might be a better way to do it. Maybe like we put a tick in there or something that, you know, we can tell. So that's all working. So I'm going to duplicate again. What you're seeing is the other ones. I'm going to select these guys, duplicate again, select, oh, I lost my selection. Oh no, I think it did mess something up there. I missed my selection, I guess. So yeah, that's not too bad. So if I select all these guys, and I really do need group selection at this point, even though it's going to be one of those things that's tricky, I need to do a box selection. So now if I hit copy, and then I come over here and paste, that's my selection. Which the interesting thing about it is that you can then come in here and make changes. You know, like what's something useful, like change this all from crate to one of the other ones if I wanted to, or change the rotation of all of them. So I want to change all the rolls to, you know, 90-degree roll on these guys. I think this is just helpful for, you know, being able to do different things unexpected gives you some flexibility. It gives you some ability to do something interesting with your scene that you normally couldn't do, for whatever reason. I think the tool programmer is an unsung hero. Okay, how many more of these do I have? Should have done this smarter way, huh? So now I can copy all that. And well, first, let's move these guys out of the way. Come on, select. Now I should make it where if you're holding down Shift and click and miss, it shouldn't fail. But so now I copy this guy, and then I come in here and paste. And nothing happened. Why nothing happened? Ooh, did it paste them all over here? I guess I rolled 90 degrees, and the roll 90 degrees is no, that's it. Multiples under there. That's weird. That's the right thing. No, didn't deserialize anything. That'll do it. Let's find out why. Oh, this isn't handle. Oh, it's looking for entities. Let's fix that, huh? Let's use that as a common thing here. Let's make that entities so that everything works the same. Yep. And then that means this will be entities. I need to save it, really. It's going to fail. Can't do that. But this one's going to work. Paste. Hey, look, put them in there. Now, of course, I picked rotate 90 degrees on roll, and it just happened to be the axis that shows nothing, but it did do it. So that working is pretty cool. I guess I must have done some weird copy at some point. That is a little disturbing. I wonder if something's wrong, but yeah, something is wrong. You got some stuff wrong. Interesting. But it's a starting point. So we have the start of a multi-selection system, which is, a pretty important part of an editor to be able to do things in mass. At least now, if we have these two lights, and if we want to, I don't know what's wrong with all this stuff. Need to spend some time on that, but didn't want to do it on this stream and waste time. If you have two lights and you want to move them around now you can select both lights and move them at the same time, which is a helpful thing. And we're not dealing with the snapping portion of things at the moment. Assuming everything's relative, then everything should work okay. If everything's on grid, we'll deal with that later, I guess. So yeah, so cool beans. All right, so I am going to commit some of this work. No, I don't want to commit it. Well, yeah, let's commit some of this work. Because if I commit some of this work, then you guys can mess with it if you have access to the demo, which people that are currently members on Patreon or on GitHub, subscribers can have access to this stuff. So let's push that. So not a bad, not a horrible afternoon or morning of coding. A couple things got worked out. Has more work to do, but it's a starting point. A lot of different broken things here. Clean that up. Let's do this. Clean up. I like making small commits of things in places where they're isolated. Let's just some cleanup. Transform action has been changed into a multi-selection. That is my local change. Game manager, that's a local change. That's nothing. Scene. Yep, we added some. Damn it. See this stuff? I really hate Visual Studio's doing shit like this. Like if you make a mistype and you don't undo, it will leave junk like this in your commit, which I freaking hate. Damn you. Let's get this stuff committed. Come on. Be helpful. There we go. That's junk I don't need. I need to go clean that up. Selections a new thing. Editor had a bunch of changes. We're working on, I think I was working on a scale change to the system. That's why some things are a little bit off. That's good. That's all good. That's all good. That's all good. I like just looking through this stuff and not just blindly committing everything. So just I have so many things that are kind of like work in progress in here. So that's good. Even though I don't love how I did this, some of this stuff. Well, that's. I mean, this is okay. It's using the first thing as the transform, which is okay for right now. That has to be worked out. Pick refresh. Left click, that's true. That's all good. This other pick selection, those are all good. It's just that scale change that's different. Delete action got fixed up. That all looks good. Is that everything? Yes. A bunch of builder stuff that was in work in progress. That stuff's committed. A bunch of content work was a work in progress. Updated content. We don't want to commit yet until we get the content working, build back to working properly. All right, so not bad. Work in progress on multi-selection in editor. Committed, pushed. Yay. I think we want to move this stuff back to the main branch. It's been a while since we've moved that. I'll have to talk to the guys about that and get that moved. So what did we learn today? So that was, it felt like to me like getting multi-selection would be quicker, but it wasn't always. You know, this is the common thing with programmers. We always underestimate the amount of time it takes to do something. Sometimes by a factor of 10. Hopefully not, but sometimes. But yeah, I underestimated that time, but at least, you know, we got that done. So we have the core of multi-selection working, a little bit more cleanup, and it should be working for all the transform cases. We need to do a little bit more work with, where's the gizmo selection? Is it the center of the thing but snapped? Probably. If you're in a snapping mode, it should probably select the center of the selection, but make sure it's to a snap point so that everything moves relative to that. So that everything stays on grid, most likely. And then once we have all the transform stuff working right, then the next step would be to get the property editor to work with this, so that when you do multi-select, the property editor has a concept of showing multi-selected items. And that, you know, for that you kind of have to decide on your technique. Some systems work differently, but mostly you just want to show. Some of them say, well, show things that are different, but show them like with some text that says like, hey, they're all different. Some people just show the common elements. So elements that only one thing has, it gets rid of, I guess. Actually, that's what you always want to do. You want to show the common elements. Any property that is unique to only one item,
or that you don't that every item doesn't have, it omits. So with most of these, it'll end up just showing the common elements, which are basically the core entity elements, the transform stuff. You know, the core, is it shadowed, is it not shadowed, things like that. And if we need to show an intermediate case, like if some of them have like shadowed clicked on and some have shadowed clicked off, I have to somehow show that that's not consistent across all of them. So there's a lot of little UI things to do to make that nice. But once we do, then it's very easy to select a bunch of things and shut shadows off and do things like that. And you know, as you start doing this, it expands. Like things get better and better because you have all these systems built up. So once you do this, then undo and redo continues to work like you would expect it to work. You know, it starts to just make it more and more powerful having these features in the editor. And this is definitely a different approach than what we've taken on like the 3D platformer, which uses we use Blender as kind of like an editor. Really, it's not as we use it to edit the scene. Then we have an export script that exports the definition of the scene so that then the game can play it. So this is a different approach to doing that with Ascent. And hopefully, I think for the next stream, what I'll do is I'll make sure the content building has been fixed so that we can build content again, and then we might start messing around with a little bit of stuff with rendering. There's some issues that I have with some of the materials that I need to fix. There's some issues with the lighting system. Like I want to move away from like these hacky values to more of a candle power kind of value to get a more realistic value out of it. And I just got to get all the math right. So that'll be fun. Oh, damn it. I just realized I lost music at some point. That sucks. My music. You know what it did? It started playing, and when I was muted, I got distracted and forgot to hit the loop track. Lots of music in time. So yeah, so next time we will get deeper into this, I think. So thanks for watching, you guys. As always, follow us on Twitch and YouTube. We're always trying to increase our numbers there. I think we're getting close to 7K followers on YouTube, and Twitch I haven't checked in a while, but I know it's been going up. So we're trying to get more viewers and more subscribers, and always donate to MonoGame if you want access to the Ascent demo and the stuff that we're working on. If you donate either through Patreon or GitHub sponsors, we will give you access to those repositories for you to mess around with. Their access to subscribers, and that kind of helps us, push the project forward. We're always looking for donations to keep this project moving forward as fast as possible. So thanks, everybody. See you next time. Bye.